says I'm recording. There we go. Here we are. We're live. Oh my gosh. Hey, it's David Blackmon, Energy Question Podcast. Talking politics today with Stuart Turley, President CEO of the Sandstone Group, and the great Larry Schweikart, America's history teacher, author of Patriot's History of Globalism, A Patriot's History of the United States, great book about Ronald Reagan. How you doing, Larry?
Good. I'm awake here.
Your hair looks great.
Yeah, I'm barely awake too. My hair doesn't look great; it never does. So, just I want to just start briefly by telling people, if you're looking for me on LinkedIn, I've been suspended from LinkedIn. No idea why. They claim somebody tried to hack me yesterday. I don't know if that's true or not, but they say it's going to take 24 to 48 hours to resolve the situation. And I guess we'll know Wednesday whether I'm ever going to be back over there, because as everyone knows, there's no way, literally no way, to contact anyone at LinkedIn to get a real description about what's going on. Anyway,
or X or Twitter, and they will not talk to a human.
Right, they're all the same, and they're all a bunch of, well, I won't say anymore. So Larry, let's start with your assessment of where we stand in the presidential contest before we get into these other issues.
Well, there have been a number of polls that have the predictable so-called conservatives freaked out. Rasmussen had a nightly poll last night with Harris up 6. Now, understand, these are rolling nightly polls. And just a week earlier, he had Trump up 10, Harris up 6, and today Trump's back up, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6, some ridiculous number. And so these nightly polls just cannot be trusted. I mean, they're just, if you want to take an average of the week, maybe. The best poll out there was Atlas, which has Trump at plus 3.6. Atlas was the most, even Barris said this, the most accurate pollster in 2020, outdid Barris by a half a point. And they've got Trump up 3.6. I think Barris called this that the whole debate thing was just one more opportunity for response bias and shut off my phone here. Sorry. For response bias and for them to jimmy the polls one more time. But what we really need to look at is quit looking at polls. Look at real data. Poll is a sample of what someone says they will do in 45 days. Okay. Meanwhile, voter registrations are reality. That's somebody taking the time to fill out a voter registration right now. And absentee ballot requests are a reality. That's somebody taking the time to actually request an absentee ballot. So the biggest news over the weekend was 2 places. Duval County, Florida, which is a highly contested area, saw Democrats down and Republicans up by a total of 11 points, which that's interesting because that matches exactly the DR split we saw in North Carolina. But the second thing we saw is that all ballot requests are way down from 2020. So then we go to North Carolina, and there the results are brutal for Harris because the total absentee ballot requests. Now, people remember this is where they stole the election with the mules. Months and months out, thanks to COVID, they were able to request these ballots and begin filling them out for nursing homes and empty apartment buildings and everything else. They don't have that time now. Well, ballot requests, early ballot requests in North Carolina are down almost 80%, from over a million to 173,000. And even among that, we're back to a significant Democrat fall off and a substantial, about 4 or 5 point Republican gain. I think Democrats are down 13, and Republicans are up 5 or 6. It's a total of about 18 or 19 points shift from 2020. So that brings us to Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, where we have actual data of massive shortfalls in absentee ballot requests, early ballot requests from 2020. In other words, the mechanism they used to steal it in 2020 isn't there. And even if it was, the Republicans are more than holding their own with Democrats, are ahead in every state in terms of where they were in 2020. So that's the real state of the race.
Hey, Larry, one other thing I want to ask you about, too. One thing that happened last week is we had this decision from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court disallowing these the Secretary of State and these county level vote counters from tabulating ballots that are misdated and don't have verifiable signatures. Do you think that's going to be a big factor in Pennsylvania too? Because I know there was a lot of that in Pennsylvania 4 years ago.
No, for this reason, it's not final. The judgment was ruled on kind of a technicality that said that it didn't include all of the counties. And my guess is that the lawfare guys are going to run back and fix those things and submit it again. And I think next time the Pennsylvania soups will come to a different decision. But all of this eats time. There's that famous scene in the movie Waterloo where Wellington is waiting on Blucher to show up on the battlefield, and the men start cheering and shouting at Napoleon, and his own men start cheering and shouting. He goes, anything that wastes time, because time is on our side. The cheat fails more every second that goes by that they're not able to fill out ballots and send them in.
Yeah. One point I want to make about polls is that there's two polls everyone needs to just ignore. Don't even look at them when you see them. If you see the word Ipsos or Morning Consult next to a poll, you should just discard it because they're clearly politically motivated polls. There's a reason why they're the first ones that publish after every major event, because they're narrative setting polls trying to set the narrative for the rest of the polling community that favors Democrats on what their quote findings ought to be. The three polls you can trust that are non-politically motivated are the Big Data poll by Rich Barris, the Axis poll that Larry was just talking about, and the Trafalgar Group. These are the three most accurate pollsters last two election cycles. They're the ones that are going to give you a true gauge of the race, and it doesn't matter which way it's going on any given day. Rasmussen, if you look at a weekly average, like Larry said, can be sort of reliable. But if you're looking at that nightly thing, you're going to be scared to death one day and ready to go pop the champagne the next. I mean, it just goes all over the place. It's crazy.
Well, Insider Advantage has been okay too.
Yes.
Fabrizio is okay. I'm not sure what's going on with Trafalgar this time around. They seem to be picking up a lot of that response bias that Barris talked about.
Yeah.
They had a poll out yesterday in Nevada with Trump down a couple. I don't see that. I think Nevada is safe. You go back to 1 week ago today, and Tucker Carlson told Glenn Beck that he had seen the internals of both camps' polls and of the battleground states, and that it wasn't close, and that Trump was basically in total command of all of this, and that they know it. And I think if you look at that one stop Harris made over the weekend, I don't know where it was, but she was giving a little speech, but her body language said it all. She looked like somebody who knew she was losing badly. She's going through the motions. So I think that, again, the response bias business, you just got to let these polls flush out, kind of ignore them for a while, and just concentrate on the real data that we had that's showing real people's actions, not their intentions.
Yeah. So, so the response bias, of course, is coming in the wake of that debate. We have this report from yesterday, from Sunday, actually a release by an ABC News whistleblower, 6-page affidavit detailing what he believes is collusion between ABC News and the Kamala Harris campaign to rig that debate in her favor. Reading through the affidavit, it makes a lot of sense given what we saw in that debate. Clearly a 3-on-1 effort to disadvantage Trump in that debate, and he was clearly not very well prepared for that debate, made a lot of mistakes and a lot of missed opportunities. I don't know. I don't really think debates ever really are dispositive of any presidential campaign. I wonder what you think about it, guys.
Well, I'm not sure about that memo. I'm not ready to accept that yet. As I understand it, the whistleblower died in a car crash, which is...
Well, I think that was a bad rumor. I think that was a bad rumor.
Okay. All right. Well, so I would like to see more verification of that memo. It would not surprise me one iota. What would surprise me is they would put it in writing that they would be that stupid. But nobody watches a whole debate. Only absolute political, zealots watch a whole debate. What's interesting is that Trump's closing statement got several orders of magnitude more attention than Harris's did. That Trump was on TikTok with several orders of magnitude more hits than Harris is.
Right.
And most of all, in terms of lost opportunities, we can sit here and say, well, he should have said this after that. Everybody's a very good debater after the debate, right?
Right.
But what's interesting is what came out of that debate. And what came out of the debate is they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs.
Right.
That's what people got out of that debate. Plus, that Harris has had 4 years to do something and hasn't done anything and can't answer a single question as to why she hasn't done anything. So, again, you factor out this response bias I think we're seeing now, and the debate didn't change anything. She needed an absolute knockout.
That's a great song, isn't it?
Yeah, she didn't
get
it.
Eat the dogs. That's a great song. It's got a rhythm to it.
Well, let's play it. Let's play it. We've got that.
They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
Larry, I'm sorry. I like this meme even better though.
Gathered in their masses, just like witches at Blackmon.
This is what I want. I want me one of them bad dogs.
Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction.
But now, David loved this one. I don't know why.
I just got a kick out of all those. It just reminded me of Nuevo Laredo, the bridges there coming in from Mexico. So, this whole Springfield thing, I think you're absolutely correct. I always warn people going into a debate that debating points never matter, that it's all about perception. The real winner of every one of these debates has always been the one who got the best line off. And to me, the best line of the night was the first 15 seconds of Trump's closing statement. And when he ticked off all the things that Harris had promised she was going to do and then asked the question, well, then why hasn't she already done it? Right. That's going to be the enduring question and message from that debate. And it's why Trump really...
Joe Biden got that message. Joe got it. Don't you think, Larry, when he did this? Do you think that he actually knew what he was doing? He is walking up Air Force One with his Trump hat this week. I did not have that on my bingo card. Did you guys have that on your bingo card that he was aboard Air Force One with a Trump hat?
I stand by my statement that he doesn't even know what plane he's getting on, let alone what cap he's carrying. So,
well, I think that's likely, but I think regardless of whether he knows what he's doing or not,
it's funny.
The message he's sending there is pretty clear, and I think the Harris campaign had to be furious about that, and the incident prior to that when he put the cap on in front of all the cameras at the campaign stop he was supposedly making on her behalf. Biden that's a really interesting question, is what in the hell, who is running the country? Who's running the country? Anybody know? It's certainly not Joe Biden. Never has been.
No, it's a group of cabals. You've got the Ukraine war cabal. You've got the green energy cabal. You've got the illegal immigration cabal. They're not all the same people. Some of them have different interests. They're pulling against each other sometimes, which is why not a whole lot has gotten done under Biden outside of a few executive orders. But you saw where they were drifting toward a war with Russia by offering these long-range missiles. And then somebody, I don't know if it was wink and blink and a nod, the Secretary of State or one of these other people, but somebody said, wait a minute, and they gave that the hook. So right now we're not going to war with anybody, but it's Russia, it's a group of idiots.
Yesterday, Putin announced that he's increasing the number of his army to bigger than anything else. 2 some odd million men or something. I have to go look at the number, but it's an unbelievable amount that he is increasing the army today.
Well, Putin's situation is interesting. There's an old saying, I think it's about China, but it also goes for Russia, that Russia is never as strong as she looks. Russia is never as weak as she looks. And one of the things, it doesn't matter how big he increases the army, one of the important things is that he's had now 2 years and has not been able to subdue a fairly minor world power, and has had to give up on the mercenary track and bring in real soldiers, and is still kind of stuck there. So if he can't beat Ukraine in 2 years, he's got to wonder about how good his military really is.
And that's why, to me, it's such a bad joke when you hear people talk about, well, once he's done with Ukraine, he's going to go into Poland. He's going to conquer all of Europe. He can't even get past the eastern third of Ukraine, folks. That's just nonsense. It's abject nonsense. The Russian army is not capable of that.
Yeah, Latvia would be a stretch for them right now.
Exactly. And this thing, as Trump pointed out in the debate, he will have this thing settled before he even takes office in the interim, because all it's ever required is for someone in the United States or in NATO to convene a meeting between Putin and Zelensky and make a deal over the eastern provinces that are, populated with 90% Russians who have always considered themselves historically to be a part of Russia.
And both of them want that deal. Secretly, both of them want that deal.
Well,
they just they're like fighting kids that need a parent to take them by the hand and go, okay, make up.
Didn't Biden force Boris to go to Zelensky? He had a signed treaty that he told him to tear up. So the Biden administration, which Harris is part of, she was the last one in the room on the Afghanistan, told him to shut it down, and they've killed how many million?
Yeah. Well, I mean, war is their last kind of trump card, no pun intended, that they can play here. And I think there's at least a few adults in the administration somewhere who are going, you understand that if you unleash nuclear weapons, we all glow in the dark. Nobody walks away from this. There is no Democrat Party. There's no President Harris. There's nothing but smoking ash. So I think somebody in there has kind of gotten that message.
Yeah.
We hope.
Yes, we all better hope. So this brings us to the question of the day, the latest assassination attempt aimed at President Donald Trump, just 2 months after the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, by a fellow who appeared in a BlackRock commercial, and who was on the FBI's radar, and who was obviously pretty well trained and ready to try to carry out that effort. We have another assassination attempt mounted by a guy, Thomas Crooks, who's actually been a recruiter for the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, an entity established by the CIA and NATO at the advent of this war with Russia. A guy who got arrested in 2002 on what started as a traffic incident, barricaded himself up in a local business for 3 hours, had an armed standoff with local police, and was charged with possessing weapons of mass destruction. And his sentence ended up being probation.
What?
So I wonder what kind of connections this guy and associations he must have in order to receive a probation sentence for those level of felonies. Anybody want to comment on that?
David, for your podcast listeners, we've got a slide up there from Into Thin Air on X. And let me just read this. This will not be the last assassination attempt on Trump. Info is now abundantly clear that both shooters of both assassination attempts were linked to BlackRock and the CIA.
Yeah, that
would be no surprise. So was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, not surprising. And this guy's name is Ruth, and his CIA code name was Baby. So they're after President Trump here. They're not going to get him. They don't understand that right now. I believe President Trump has the protection of Almighty God, and they could launch a tow missile at him and it wouldn't do any good. But these guys are absolutely deliberate professionals. I guess one good thing out of all the DEI stuff is that all these agencies are losing their marksmanship training and can't shoot very well anymore. They're too busy with the DEI regulations, thank God. But this guy lived, unlike Mr. Crooks. And, let's hope he isn't transported to jail by Jack Ruby Jr. So he makes it there.
I love Lord Bailey.
Yeah, Lord Bailey makes a good point. Yeah, that was the kind of the point I was trying to make there. And to that point, Larry, I mean, Palm Beach County is filled with strip club owners who have connections to the mob. So I'm sure that the CIA and FBI be able to recruit one to take out this guy in the basement of the police headquarters building there in Palm Beach.
In the Jeffrey Epstein cell.
Yeah, in the Jeffrey Epstein cell. I joke about that, but this is really, the similarities here. I mean, here's a guy, he's got no visible means of income, right? But he's able to fly from Hawaii out to Florida, take up residence at a hotel there, buy a very expensive AK-47 and a bunch of protective equipment to try to protect him as he's trying to assassinate Trump. Where's the money coming from? These are the same questions we asked about James Earl Ray in the wake of the assassination of Martin Luther King, as he was able to travel all over the world for 3 months and no one could figure out where he got all the money. Well, obviously we know where he got all the money. I mean, obviously, I think by now everyone realizes where he got all the money. And so this is, I just, I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I've spent decades studying both Kennedy assassinations, Martin Luther King assassination. It's clear they were all government operations to take out political enemies of the deep state as it existed then. And Donald Trump is the most prominent enemy of the deep state today, just as Ronald Reagan was the most prominent enemy of the deep state in 1980 when John Hinckley tried to take him out. Anyway, so that's my theory.
You could just hear the conversation outside Grand Moff Garland's office the other day when he's yelling, "I told you next time to get a professional shooter." And they said, "Sir, you deployed all of our men to be the fake FBI guys at the Springfield Proud Boys March. They weren't available."
Or the PTA meeting or the school board meeting out in Phoenix, Arizona, where parents are showing up. So, I just think this is, I don't know if they can continue doing these things without most Americans finally waking up to what's happening. And the sad part of it, though, to me, is that we know going in that the FBI and the Secret Service are going to coordinate on a cover-up, that a congressional committee is going to try to do its own investigation, and it will, reveal some of the real truth about the whole thing, just as has happened in Butler. In the state of Florida, it looks like Ron DeSantis is going to mount an investigation, which, I wish the state had the authority to just take it over completely.
And David, the head of the FBI, the FBI agent in charge on this case is a known anti-Trumper.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he is. Half the agency's known anti-Trumpers, maybe more.
And by the way, DeSantis, in his statement, is very interesting. He used the word the GOP nominee. This guy still cannot bring himself to use the name Donald Trump, which I think is absolutely disgusting, and is another reason why, in my view, he will never, ever hold another elected position, because he can't get over that loss that he took. As far as being a threat to the deep state, I think if anybody has been fundamentally changed about all this, I think it is Donald Trump. And I think in the last 6 months, he has, if not before, gone from his 2016 position of, well, we don't want to prosecute Hillary. It would be bad for the political democratic system. Let's just go on and do our agenda. I think that that's out the window now. And I think he realizes that he must fundamentally reform. And by reform, I mean grind down to the nubs the CIA and the FBI. I'd completely disestablish the FBI and let the U.S.
Oh, I
Marshals
would
do the
disband
job.
it and rebuild. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you need
It's
it. In
not
fact, I think
trustworthy.
that's the only solution.
It is.
I think you have
It's
to
not
completely
trustworthy.
disband it. Yeah.
And
really,
I had a very high-ranking former congressman tell me exactly that that even he did not trust them, and that they needed to be removed as an entity on the American body politic. So I think next time, and the blowback on this, unfortunately, is going to be, there will be a lot of the left going, see, we told you so. We told you he was going to be a totalitarian. Well, it's going to take a very focused and determined effort to remove these agencies and to get them back under the control of the people. And the left absolutely hates that, because these are their SA and their SS little machines that they can use to send out against ordinary people and file all sorts of legal charges against people who've done nothing and put them in jail for months at a time.
Yeah, and don't you think, I mean, and I totally agree with that. Don't you think, though, that in order for him to be able to do it, he's got to make the right choice for the attorney general's job, which he did not do in his first presidency. Made a horrible choice in Jeff Sessions. Bill Barr was no better. The interim guy, whose name I always forget, was better, but he could never be confirmed. And so he's got to make the right choice at attorney general and somehow get that person confirmed by the Senate. That's going to be a big lift, isn't it? Because of the rhinos in the Senate.
That's why it's all the more important that we not only need a GOP Senate, but we need enough margin in that Senate, 2 or 3 votes, that we could get with Bernie Moreno in Ohio, or Kerry Lake, or even maybe Hulk Hogan out there in Maryland. We need that margin to offset Susan Tom Collins and Murkowski and whatever new liberal the unfortunate state of Utah is going to send in Minion Romney's place.
What the hell is going on in Utah? How in the world can they still not get a real conservative running for that seat?
I have a good friend who is a Mormon, and he says, Larry, the Mormons are a polite people. They value being polite and a surface view of being nice and polite, as opposed to getting things done. And that's their problem up there, is that they had a conservative nominated, I think, in the caucus, and yet when the convention came, or however it works up there, they have 2 separate things. The Romney light guy won.
Well, boy, yeah, you're right. No, I mean, Collins and Murkowski, you do have to be able to overcome those votes. I mean, I think the Senate is shaping up well to at least have a 51-seat majority, because you're going to win West Virginia. I think you're going to win Montana. That gets you to 51. But any of these other seats, I mean, it just doesn't look like anybody's getting real traction. I'm really disappointed what's happening in Arizona, apparently. I mean,
there was a poll.
That seat should be winnable.
There was a poll a week ago that had Bernie Moreno either down just 1 or up in Ohio. I think it was an internal poll, so take it for what it's worth. But Trump can pull Moreno over. He's going to win Ohio by close to 10 points this time, and that should be enough to pull Moreno over. McCormick, surprisingly, is polling fairly well in Pennsylvania. He's been down 1 or tied in a couple of polls. Lake's problem in Arizona is multifaceted. Number one, she's made enemies of both all the McTurdites, which is good, the McCain people, and she's made enemies of the Mormons, because she took out Karen Taylor Robeson in the primary last year. And so you're probably looking at a shortfall of 120,000 votes right there. Now, the good thing is Maricopa County, the most recent numbers we have is just in Maricopa County, Republicans are up 162,800. So there's margin there still for her to win. If Trump wins Arizona by 4 or 5, he can pull her over. I disregard some of the latest polling in Arizona for Trump, up 2 or 3. He's going to win Arizona by more than that. We haven't seen updated registration numbers for the rest of the state, but basically you got blue Tucson, you've got very getting much redder, Maricopa County, and then the whole rest of the state is just like a red everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if Maricopa is doing this well in terms of voter registrations, I'm sure that the rest of the state is seeing a major Republican surge. So it's not good for Kerry. I've spoken to a lot of GOP clubs here who say we can't get her out to speak. She won't come and talk to us. There's a lot of campaign problems there. And even with all that, she's still in striking distance.
Yeah, I mean, she just seems to me like such an attractive candidate, just in a lot of different ways, but she just doesn't get the traction, unfortunately. And, you know, maybe that'll change in the next 50 days. We got 50 days, okay, left in this campaign. That's it. 49, I guess, as of tomorrow. Yeah. So I think, as far as I can tell, I agree with Larry's assessment up front that Trump is ahead in this race. Harris is going to have to win. When you look at these polls, you got to realize Harris needs to win the popular vote by 4 to 5% of the vote to have any chance of prevailing in the Electoral College, because most of that margin is coming from California and New York, and Trump isn't going to win those states under any circumstances.
Right.
So I just feel like Trump's ahead. And my view is he's got to just run his campaign from here on out. I saw somebody who was, that idiot Bill Kristol, made a tweet yesterday saying, well, you know, Tim Walz should consider canceling his debate, you know, with J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance would just spew a lot of racist stuff in the debate, you know, which is a signal that he's very afraid that J.D. Walsh is going to clean up the floor with Tim Walz. I mean, J.D. Vance with Tim Walz. And of course, they want to cancel that vice presidential debate.
Well, you know, they could roll out Tim Walz's wife with those crazy eyes.
God.
I mean, she looks like one of the people cooking the cats.
Well, I wish we'd have thought to get that video to show that.
Oh,
I
my
mean,
goodness.
the
That was
crazy
wild.
is always in the
Hey,
eyes, right?
What about the Swiftie effect? Because I think the Swiftie effect is really not going to be that big. And I wanted to share this with you guys here, if you don't mind, because I love this version of the debate. Just let's play about 10, 15, 20 seconds of this. This is great. Okay, you guys ready?
Here we go.
After the debate, I just couldn't wait. They told me what to say.
Hey.
Played in every way. I want Euro level rapes. Unrecognizable states. At least I'll vote that way. They told me what to say. I want Trump losing. Haitians barbecuing. Garfield with some cumin. Right outside saying this cat's cooking up real nice. Cause I'm telling you, play. When the Democrats who take. I'll pretend it was a stage. My mask is off, I'll take it off. Got a ring of
Okay. I'm sorry. There's more to that song, but that's the version that I want happening out there.
That's a bit of
Well,
real
there was
genius.
a poll that came out after the Taylor Swift endorsement, and apparently 2-1, it hurt
Yes.
Harris more than it helped her. I do think, and I try to stay tuned into pop culture a lot. And I do think that there's this kind of underlying sentiment now in America that they're done with Taylor Swift. She's had her moment in the sun. They're sick of seeing her at the Kansas City Swifts football team games.
Yeah.
Right. And they're sick of Travis Kelce. I know a lot of Kansas City fans who say, I hate Kansas City right now. They're just, it's enough.
They're going to break up. It was a fake relationship, in my opinion.
Well, it's just, I don't think that Taylor Swift is going to do one thing for Harris. Any voters that Swift would bring to Harris were already there a year ago. The longer running thing is going to be, this assassination attempt took the whole cat barbecue story off the news, but I don't think that's going to go away because the problem is still there. The Haitians are still there. Yes, they are foreign invaders. I don't know how they got in with immunity, but it's going to be a problem for the Democrats.
Well, and it is. And look, what people need to understand is we're hearing about that. We're hearing about what's happening in Aurora with the Venezuelan gangs. We're hearing about the small town in Alabama. It's got the same problem in Springfield, Ohio. If we're hearing about what's happening in those three places, that means there's 100 times that many towns in America suffering from the same problems. Okay.
It's a real issue in the oil field.
It
David.
is. It
It
is.
is a
And it's,
real issue.
you know,
I heard there was a Permian Basin Venezuelan gang problem.
Yes.
see, I haven't heard that yet. Where is it?
Yeah.
I
In
gotta
the
look that up.
Permian Basin, they're stealing equipment, and the
Oh, yeah,
Venezuelan gangs.
That's
And then the
Mexican.
Venezuelan gangs are also parking at truck stops, and they're tapping on the truckers' doors and saying, if you got to pay us $50. If not, I just saw one on X this morning. The guy paid his $50 and the truck next to him didn't pay it. All of his tires were slashed.
Hmm.
So the Venezuelan gangs are now extorting truckers $50 a night to stay at a truck stop.
The
This
Mexican cartels have been doing stuff like that for years. So yeah, I'm
It's
sad
gonna
to
get
see another
weird,
country
folks.
getting in on the gig. The
Trump
things
needs
happen.
to do. He needs to do a town hall at both Aurora and at Springfield, Ohio, and
Oh yeah,
that would go over very well. But these people on the media are they're worse than Goebbels. They're worse than Baghdad Bob.
Yeah,
they're
they are.
outright propagandist liars all the time. That's all they are anymore.
they are. And Megyn Kelly said the other day that I think she was at the Tucker Carlson event that she participated in. Said that the media has now committed suicide. That they'll never recover from this. You know, I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't seem to make any difference to these media operations, whether or not they're profitable, whether or not they have real audiences, because they're owned by these major corporations who view them as political assets.
Yes.
And that's why they're still, I mean, that's the only reason CNN still exists.
Well, but
CNN hadn't turned a profit in this century.
Yeah, but Dave, that returns us only to where they started, which was in the Jacksonian era. Every
Right.
single newspaper was owned by either the Democratic Party or the infant Whig Party. They were not
Right.
interested in news. They were only propagandists. And so we're right back. And they didn't have huge circulations then. The only time they got circulations was when they abandoned that after the Civil War and tried to
Right.
become real businesses, which they kind of did for almost a century before swinging back to their roots.
Yeah, and that swing started after World War II, back to their roots, and you know, we saw it. I mean, it's obviously evolved throughout my lifetime, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. It's as Stu said, they're worse than Goebbels right now. I mean, I think they're worse, really worse, truly worse. Anything the Nazis or Beria in Russia were able to mount. In terms of propaganda operations, they're really and truly brainwashing operations now in our country, and they've managed to brainwash about 40% of the population, I think.
Well, in Beria's defense, you know, he killed them before they could be brainwashed. So
Well, that's true. Yeah,
he didn't have as big an audience for an obvious reason.
that's true. Let's hope it doesn't come to that in the United States. We'll be the first targets, I guess. You know, and the funny thing about those people is the people in the media is they think that doing what they do is going to make them immune when the revolution takes over, right? But when the revolution finally succeeds, they're really going to be among the first people eliminated.
exactly.
That's always the history of these things. And it's
Well,
like they just have no clue.
Lenin said when he took over Russia, we'll shoot all the trade union leaders, we'll shoot all the professors, we'll shoot all the journalists. This is step number one.
That's step one. And then they go to the rest of society. And that's I kind of wonder, guys. And I just write what I think on my Substack, on my political
And that's why you get banned
Substack,
on LinkedIn.
and what I believe. And right, exactly, probably. And I believe we're right in the midst of a real true blue communist revolution in our country. And it's pretty well advanced at this point. And if this election goes the wrong way, it's going to be really advanced very quickly. And I think what we've seen with the labor takeover in the UK and the crackdown on civil rights over there, freedom of speech is gone. I think you will immediately see a Kamala Harris administration to do the same thing very rapidly with the support of the media
She said,
and
David,
try to consolidate everything before people really know what's going on.
Kamala Harris said, quote, Elon Musk has lost the right to own X. And if anybody does not, that got both of my hairs standing up on end, because once we lose X, we lose the entire ability for us to learn what's going on outside of mainstream media. It is the only reason my podcast and your podcast and all the other podcasts that are out there, people want the truth. And we are dead meat without X, and they know that.
Well, and Fox has become just another shill. It's sort of CNN light.
Yeah.
No one should ever watch Fox. I stopped watching Fox entirely in 2015. I haven't looked back since. What's odd is I have actually appeared on Fox shows with Brett Baer in these specials more times than I've turned on Fox to actually watch the channel.
Wow. I only watch Gutfeld at Planet Tyrus. You got to follow Tyrus. Love Tyrus.
Yeah, Gutfeld.
That man is a rock star. Gutfeld is the only thing worth watching with Cat and Tyrus on Fox. Everything else.
Well, Charles Payne on Fox Business is awesome.
Yes, I love Charles. I'm sorry. And Jesse tries. He tries.
He's not Tucker, but he tries.
He tries.
So I got a question for you guys. This is Stu's comment reminded me of this about X and Elon Musk. So last Thursday, our illustrious Attorney General Merrick Garland popped up without prior notice at 11 a.m. Eastern Time and made a speech that lasted for about 40 minutes, in which he defended the impartiality of the Department of Justice and repeatedly talked about our norms at DOJ and how we don't have a two-tier justice system. And I just thought, in watching that, and I watched most of it live, that it was such an odd thing, given the timing and the lack of any real apparent reason for him to give that speech. And it has me very concerned. It felt to me like an inoculation type of a speech against a coming big move against some of the administration's political enemies. And I especially worried that it might be targeting Elon Musk and X. And I just wonder what you fellas think about that possibility.
I thought the same thing. And I think it's even worse than that. Anytime you get a person of immoral character standing up like that and saying exactly what that is, it is a warning something bad is about to happen to good people. My opinion.
You know, I do actually put thought into these nicknames. And when I call him Grand Moff Garland, anyone who's seen the Star Wars movies knows that Darth Vader is the true evil power, but his minion is Grand Moff Tarkin, who does exactly what Darth Vader wants without question, and tries to pursue it to appease, as a toady to his superior. One of the great strengths about America is that our federal system not only creates 50 different potential points of opposition, but with the county level breakdowns even further, you have hundreds of thousands of points of opposition. And it's not as easy as when you take out Louis XVI and you install a reign of terror through 8 or 10 people, or where you kill the czar and you replace him with a handful of people inside Moscow. It's not that easy here. And I have great confidence that the American system, the way the founders set it up, can still use the word inoculate, can still inoculate ourselves against California and New York and Illinois, and basically fight it out in the rest of the country, which is, for the most part, overwhelmingly red, Republican, and commonsensical.
So you're saying that if under the current system, you're relegated to carrying a red hat up Air Force One ladder to get your story out that you're being run over. Is that?
Yeah, he got run over big time.
Well, again, I don't think Biden knows what plane he's getting on, let alone what cap he's carrying. It's interesting that Dr. Jilly is not out there campaigning at all for Cackles.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything from Dr. Jilly.
Nor is Big Mike and Michelle Obama. Nor is
that is telling to me that we're not seeing the Obamas, we're not seeing Clinton, we're not seeing any of this activity out there for them trying to run down the road for Kamala. That to me is more of a frightening thing going on, that something bad is about to happen, because why do they want their name associated with it?
Well, from the conservative perspective, most people think, oh, Obama's a progressive, an uber liberal. And, I've got David Limbaugh's books here, Crimes Against Liberty and the Great Destroyer. And that's how he views him. But inside Democrat progressive circles, Hillary and Obama were viewed as moderate centrists.
Yeah.
And they are not carrying the progressive torch. So one theory is that the progressives are secretly trying to get Harris and the whole Biden moderate ilk out. Biden went along with all the progressive stuff, but he was not ever viewed as a progressive prior to when he got the presidency. And I think one view is that they want to clear the decks and make room for Gavin Newsom in 2028. So they aren't going to be all that concerned if Harris loses.
Yeah. Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think Gavin Newsom is obviously the preferred heir apparent to whatever happens here in November. I just think that he's been pre-selected, as the Democrats like to do. They don't really want to have any contested contests for their presidential nominations, as we've seen the last 3 cycles. So where do we go from here, gentlemen? What do we think? Golly, is the media going to memory hole this assassination attempt?
Yes.
Even faster than they did Butler, PA?
Yes.
Well, if they do that, they're back to cats.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that they really want to do that.
It has been pretty convenient, hasn't it?
Yeah.
From that aspect.
So they've got big problems, and they've got an even bigger problem now structurally. See, they wanted all this. They asked for this. Well, they got it. I forget what president, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, said something about they wanted democracy. They're going to get it good and hard. And they wanted early voting. They wanted it really badly. Well, they got it. Well, now it's working against them because the early votes are coming in not nearly enough to put them over the top. Republican voting is up very high. We don't know how many of those Democrat early votes that are coming in are actually for Trump and Republicans, because they're fed up and sick of this stuff. Right. So the very structures that they put in place, this is Hannum with his gallows, right? Wow. The very structure they put in place is coming back to haunt them on almost every level. And so the media, I think, is relatively insignificant. The media can squawk and cackle and do all they want all day long, act like those people in the Acolyte, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, and nothing happens, right? It's like the sorcerers up there fighting, who was it, Ezekiel, and there's like hundreds of them, right? They don't matter the way they used to, not in the least. I mean, they are way down in terms of their influence. So we just keep Elon going. We keep the internet going. Don't let them shut the internet down, and we will win this thing.
Stu?
I think they're going to take the internet down, and I think that they're going to take the grid down. And I think that when General Flynn the other day put out a note, he was being interviewed, and he said, China and Russia can take our U.S. grid down at almost any time. And they can take, in my estimation, I don't have the hard numbers, but the Biden administration executive order that put the Chinese equipment back into the grid could take down a ballpark. Don't have that figure, but those are huge interconnects. And let's say you take 10% of the U.S. grid down, millions will die, depending on how long it's out. And they can do it now. Now, will it be the CIA that takes it out, or will it be the Chinese? They're throwing that out there, and it could get ugly. That's what I think is going to happen.
But if they do that, Stu, the immediate reaction would be to take down their grids, and we can do that too. And moreover, without the grid, getting out your little propaganda message is going to be harder than ever. And the atomization, the federal system works totally against that. So I think they're going to have trouble. I think they rolled the dice on lawfare. They did this a year ago, which is why they stuck with Biden. They were absolutely convinced that lawfare would take Trump out. They would quietly remove Biden after the reelection, and it would all be fine and dandy. And they are not gods. They are not Superman. They're not Captain Marvel. They're not capable of doing an awful lot of what we think they are capable of. And I think we also have to remember there's a lot of people on our side, a lot of doomers who go out there and constantly post doom stuff because they need to maintain their revenue flow. And so we've got to be very careful about the doomer message coming out from a lot of people. I'm not insinuating that Flynn is in on this, but nevertheless, it is a revenue stream to preach the doomer message right now, which goes a lot further than common sense or reality or good news. It just does.
I don't think General Flynn, I have all the utmost respect for. All the things that I have seen from him, he's talking facts. And so I don't see that he's in that doomer group.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we can take their grid down too, and there would be enormous pressure, unbelievable, I think irresistible pressure not to take their grids down too, which would in turn mean they're not going to do it. It's another form of nuclear warfare.
Unless it's our own CIA.
Well, yeah. That's true.
But then their grid goes down. That it's so interwoven anymore, you can't perform a surgical operation and knock out some Arab murderer, right, with a drone-launched missile. It's not the same here, and they're finally understanding that after 8 years, they can't get rid of Trump. I mean, come on. If they're so powerful, they've got so much ability to do stuff. They've had 8 years to get rid of this guy. They've tried the Russia hoax. They tried 2 impeachments. They tried shooting him twice. They tried every lawfare thing in the book.
The Mueller investigation.
Tried calling him a hater. The little Fed FBI people have been marching with their little flags and stuff. Nothing affects him.
He's an armor-plated booger. Unbelievable.
It's really
armor-plated booger. I love it.
Nobody's ever had more thrown at him by the American government than Donald Trump has. It's really, truly extraordinary. Gentlemen, I think we're done for this week. We ready?
Don't forget, we will be doing a live election night webcast at Decision USA 2024, and the website is Decision USA Online. And you can sponsor us now. We'll take any amount of sponsorship. It's not cheap to get in front of cameras with the full crew and go 6 hours. So we'll be doing live election night coverage at Decision Online. I'm sorry, Decision USA Online. Decision USA Online.
And if you'd like to have a couple energy experts come on and give you some opinions on experts, I know that David and I would be available to step in. And
we are having guests, and we've already confirmed Scott Pressler, Nick Searcy, and Seb Gorka. And then over the weekend, I got a very interesting call. I'm just sitting there reading. I got a call from John Voight. So I'm going to be working to get John Voight as one of our guests.
Oh, that'd be fun. That would be fun.
I want to get Christopher Lankin. I mean, wouldn't he be great?
Who?
The
Walken? Christopher Walken?
Thank you. Yeah, Christopher
Walken. Yes.
Wouldn't that be great? Oh, my goodness.
Well, we'd have to play the whole weapon of choice video before we had him on. And James Woods, of course, would also be wonderful.
Oh, my God, he would. Yeah, he was on with Megyn Kelly a few weeks ago. It was really great to hear him again. I miss that guy. He's one of my favorite actors.
There you go. Megyn Kelly, if you remember the very first debate question, the very first debate when Trump was on the scene was Megyn Kelly with that nasty question. And boy, has she come kind of 180
Full
degrees
circle,
since then.
man. Full circle. She is truly a true believer. And I mean, it's good to see it because she's such an effective voice. You know, if she's for you, you can't have a better voice behind you than Megyn Kelly. And these town halls or these events that Tucker Carlson's doing, bringing people like Megyn Kelly up on stage with him, that's very powerful.
cool
They are
cat.
drawing tens of thousands of people everywhere they go.
And they do have to be careful not to put too many of them, like not Trump and Bobby or Trump and JD Vance or JD Vance and Bobby on the stage at the same time, because the next attempt will likely be some sort of suicide bomber.
Yeah. I mean, seems likely. It seems like the natural progression for things, doesn't it? Although I don't know how you take out a suicide bomber with a mob-connected strip club owner, but we'll have to think that through.
Wow.
Anyway.
Okay.
All right, guys. Y'all have a great day, and thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll be right back here, same time next Monday. Be there.
Thanks, guys. Bye.